I call the honourable member Materia Ture. Tēnā koe, Ms. Ture.
Tēnā koe, Mr Speaker. Tēnā koutou e te whare. Let's just be really clear about who the people are who will be most affected by this legislation and its attack on the rights of New Zealanders to access genuine justice. Because that's what the Family Court has been designed to do, to provide for those most vulnerable New Zealanders, particularly women and their children, to access a system that can provide them with genuine justice and support, particularly in circumstances of where their lives and their well-being are threatened. So let's first have a look at some of the numbers in this country. 1 in every 3 women in this country has suffered some form of psychological or physical abuse from their partners. 1 in every 3. There's around 2.25 million women in this country. So we are talking about 750,000 women in this country who have suffered from some form of psychological or physical violence at the hands of their life partners. 14 women, 6 men and 10 children are killed by a family member every year in this country. Women, men and children who are living in unsafe environments in their own home and killed by a member of their family because they could not escape. The police attend around 200 domestic violence incidences every single day. That is around 1 every 7 minutes in this country. 200 a day, 1 every 7 minutes, which means a woman most likely, or a child, often as well, are in situations where their life and their well-being is being threatened by someone who most likely lives with them in their own home. The cost of these statistics are somewhere around $8 billion a year to the public purse. And those are the costs of the police, those are the costs of failed housing because a person has to run. A mother, particularly with her children, has to run from an abusive partner. It's the costs of the hospitals dealing with the beatings and the bruises. It's the cost of loss of schooling for the children who are suffering in these circumstances. And what institutions do we have that makes it possible to help reduce these appalling numbers in this country? What options do women and children have when it comes to finding someone who will help? Not only with the practical issues of finding somewhere else to live and securing an income and getting on with their lives, but making sure that the legal arrangements that they must provide for their kids in order to do well are settled and available to them. What are those legal avenues open to them? It is the family court, actually. It is the only legal avenue that these women and children, some 750,000 arguably in this country, who need to know that they have an institution, a legal institution they can go to that is accessible to them, that provides justice for them, that provides services for them and their children, so that when they are in really difficult circumstances where they fear for their safety and well-being, they have some legal protection. And so what does this government do with the institution that is designed to protect these women and these children? What does Judith Collins, Minister of so-called Justice, do with this institution? She complicates it enormously from the process that's available currently. She increases the cost significantly for the women who are trying to access justice and support. And she cuts access to legal advice and support for exactly those women. And what does she say? How does she justify this? She justifies this on cost cutting, when she knows, she must know just as I do from the statistics, that it costs about $8 billion a year to deal with the consequences of this kind of family violence that occurs. She must know that the fewer women that are able to access the family court to get justice and real legal protection when they need it will increase the costs to the public. But, you know, she would rather see that $8 billion being spent in fixing up the bruises and repairing the broken bones than in providing counselling sessions or providing a lawyer for the child or providing or making sure that women are able to access free legal advice that they can then use to protect themselves and their kids in the family court. She would much rather see that cost being borne by the public overall than to make sure that the family court is able to provide genuine justice and support to the women and families and children who need it the most. It's an appalling piece of legislation. We've known that from the start. And in fact, when the Minister put out the proposals for this review, the legal profession were horrified by what she was trying to do because of the cost that their clients would bear, not just in money, but in the safety and well-being of the clients who desperately need legal support and justice to protect them from some of the worst violence and the worst circumstances. Let's have a look at some of the provisions. It's now going to cost families around $1,000 in order to access the compulsory family dispute resolution service. Families, the median income family in this country has around $2,000 in the bank. That's a couple with a couple of kids and are doing okay, right? They've got a couple of $1,000s max in the bank on average. And yet this government wants to take, in effect, half of that annual savings that these families are trying to have got in the bank in order to pay for family dispute resolution services that have been provided in the past for free. In order to, and asked for, sought, because these parents and this family are wanting to find a way to resolve their issues so that they don't continue to bear the costs of a failed relationship or a difficult circumstance. What does Judith Collins do? She makes them pay up. Give us the cash, she says. The bureaucratic costs will be imposed on these families. Report writing costs will be imposed on these families. Lawyer for child costs will be imposed on these families. Where do children get access to justice when they don't get access to genuine legal support? Because Judith Collins has decided to take away legal advice for our most vulnerable citizens. And she says somehow that this is a good thing, that it's going to provide better access for children to genuine justice. No, it's not. We all know that the whole process of court can be a very complicated one, that it does often need real skill and understanding of how to navigate through any legal process, and yet that has been denied to the women and particularly to the children of this country because Judith Collins has such a mean approach to the real costs that families bear when there is a relationship breakdown. Mr. Speaker, I've said before that the Green Party opposes this legislation, and I agree with other colleagues who, again, have also stated their clear opposition to this legislation, that this government intends to take money, desperately needed money, from the most vulnerable families, while in the process denying them the justice to which they're entitled. And she'll do it with a smile, no doubt, and try to sell it as being a good thing for our country and for our kids. But at the end of the day, the 1 in 3 women who we know have suffered some form of abuse by their partners, their children, many thousands of their children, who these women are trying to protect from the worst circumstances of domestic violence, they are the ones who bear the cost of this legislation. It is, sir, a disgrace.
I call the honourable member Alfred Naira.